Every year, the best visual effects category in Oscar follows a strange pattern. The Academy rarely rewards most technically impressive film. Instead, they usually reward the film where VFX most invisible or emotionally tied to storytelling. Looking at likely the contenders for 2026 Oscars, here's how the field could shape up. This is my prediction about which movie will win the Oscars 2026. Avatar Fire and Ash. Avatar is the safest prediction. One should not never bet against James Cameron because his films are almost always dominate in every VFX category past year. The Avatar franchise has consistently pushed rendering, facial capture, underwater stimulation, and world building further than any other production movies. Avatar films basically add 200 minutes of pure visual effects. Technically speaking, Avatar is one of the biggest milestone in visual effects history. But here's the catch. The Academy sometimes avoids awarding the same franchise repeatedly unless the leap is truly revolutionary. If Fire and Ash only improves existing technology instead of introducing something dramatically new, the voters might look elsewhere. So my prediction will be 90% win. It's a very strong conductor, but not guaranteed. Next movie is F1. F1 could be a sleeper hit in the VFX race because racing movies today rely heavily on invisible visual effects, digital crowds, environment extension, vehicle replacements, and crash simulations. The Academy tends to love invisible VFX. If the film integrates visual effects seamlessly with the practical racing footage, it could appeal strongly to the Academy voters who like invisible effects. So my prediction will be like 70%. It is a dark horse candidate. And next movie is Sinners. Dependent on the genre or visual effects scope of the Sinners, it could fall into the stylized visual effects category. But films with supernatural or horror elements sometimes perform well if their visual effects directly support to the storytelling. However, horror movies historically struggle to win Oscars unless they break into the best picture conversation. So my prediction would be 60% possible win and unlikely winner. And next interesting movie is The Lost Verse. This type of film could rely heavily on stimulation work like fire, destruction, environment extension, and disaster sequence. Academy voters sometimes favor realistic grounded in reality. My prediction would be it would be a 50-50 potential win if the disaster sequence stand out. And next movie is Jurassic World Rebirth. Dinosaur films always bring strong visual effects work, but Jurassic franchise faces same problem as Avatar, familiarity. Unless the dinosaur looks dramatically better than previous films, voter might feel they have already seen this technology before. So my prediction would be 70%. Potential will likely, but the win is uncertain. So right now the safest guess is first one is Avatar Fire and Ash, and second is F1, and third one will be Jurassic World Rebirth. But predicting Oscar is never simple because the Academy rarely votes what is technically best. They vote for what feels noteworthy. Because the history of VFX Oscar is full of strange decisions. Because there are few upsets in the past few years, like 1917 beating Avengers Endgame, First Man beating Infinity War, Interstellar beating Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, Hugo beating Harry Potter 8 and Transformers, The Golden Compass with won over Pirates of Caribbean 3, Gladiator beating The Perfect Storm, and the Independence Day beating Twister. In many of these cases, the winning film had respective and invisible effects. This is one of the biggest questions VFX artists ask every year. Why Marvel Cinematic Universe movies rarely win? Because the MCU has received 13 Oscar nominations for Best Visual Effects and won 0. Marvel films contains thousands of complex shots, yet they rarely win Oscar for Best Visual Effects. The reason is partly psychological. The Academy tends to reward innovation, realism, and invisible effects. Marvel films tends to focus on spectacle rather than subtlety. When every frame contains thousands of characters, CG environment, creatures, portals, explosions, energy beams, the voters may perceive the work as less special even though it is technically more demanding. What this Oscar does mean for a average VFX artist? So the truth is most of the VFX artists Oscars have little direct impact. Winning an Oscar does not necessarily improve existing issues like conditions, studio stability, and all the stuffs. The award usually benefits to film studio, marketing campaigns, directors, and producers. Meanwhile, the artists who created thousands of shots often move on to the next production with tight deadlines and workloads. However, the Oscar still matters for one reason: they bring public attention for the visual effects. Every time a VFX film wins, the audience become more aware of the craft behind modern filmmaking. The visibility can slowly push the industry towards better recognition. Recently, the rise of artificial intelligence it's starting to change the visual effects landscape. AI tools are already used for rotoscoping, environment generation, facial animation, upscaling, and stimulation assistant, and much more stuff. The Oscar category may face new questions. Should AI generated effects qualify? How much human supervision if required? If a film relies heavily on VFX tools, should the award recognize the artists or engineers who build the tools or both?